inequities and abuse. Our president, if we can still even call him that, seems to believe he is the warden overseeing a prison break. This morning he tweeted, D.C. had no problems last night, many arrests, great job done by all, overwhelming force, domination. Likewise, Minneapolis was great. Thank you, President Trump. He wrote this. Forget presidents. Has any other person ever thanked himself in a tweet? Other than Trump, I don't think anyone has. Like, could you imagine Joe Montana writing, San Francisco, 4 Super Bowl rings. Thank you, Joe Montana. No, you can't, because it's unimaginable. He is unimaginable. And while the president is giving himself another reach around, we had another curfew tonight here in Los Angeles. There's a curfew in New York. Looters, who should never be confused with protesters because they are entirely different groups, have unfortunately provided the Fox Newsers with an excuse to lump people together, which is what they do best. And I don't know about you, I've yet to see a looter carrying a protest sign, but there are military vehicles in our streets. There are Army Hummers getting gas at the station down the block from my house. This is cell phone video from someone in Minneapolis where the president is so proud of his domination.
Get your house now! Let's go! Light him up! Go inside now! Get in the house!
That's members of law enforcement firing paint canisters at people who are at home on their porch. We've seen police officers armed like soldiers going to war. At the same time, we still have doctors and nurses forced to wear masks they made at home. And we've also seen glimmers of hope. We've seen policemen marching with protesters. We've seen policemen kneeling with protesters. In places like Camden, New Jersey, the police practice de-escalation. We've seen protesters protecting the police, like this group of demonstrators shielding a white officer who got separated from his squad. We've seen strong statements from American companies like this to say we're deeply saddened by the brutal, inhumane, and absolutely evil public lynching of George Floyd would be an understatement. We're pissed, said the people from Hello Tushy Bidet. But good for them. A company that manufactures butt hoses has shown more compassion and clarity than the president of this country. This is a week that any other president would have gone on TV and at least tried to bring us together. He would have at least pretended to have a message of unity and hope. But this president, hope? Nope. He can't even go through the motions. He called George Floyd's brother because somebody probably told him it would look good to do that, or maybe he's egomaniacal enough to think it would smooth everything over. He didn't even give his brother a chance to speak on the phone. Instead, he uses Twitter to brag about how the Secret Service was prepared to unleash ominous weapons and the most vicious dogs on protesters while he was hiding in a bunker underground. Mr. Tough Guy was whisked into a panic bunker on Friday as crowds assembled outside the White House. It took 3.5 years. He finally got that massive crowd to show up for him in D.C. And the reports that he was holed up and hiding must have really gotten under that orange skin, because yesterday from the Rose Garden, first he gave another terrible speech and then decided to walk from the White House to St. John's Church, which is a church that was partially burned over the weekend. And because he decided to take this unannounced little rooster walk, his Attorney General, Bill Barr, directed the police to clear the area. They used tear gas and rubber bullets to disperse a totally peaceful crowd of protesters so Trump could have his photo op, which, by the way,
unbelievable.
I want you to see this photo op because he's holding a Bible upside down in front of the church, which isn't that just perfect? Never went into the church, didn't say a prayer, just held up the Bible, posed, went back home. The bishop of the diocese said she was outraged. She said, "Let me be clear. The president just used a Bible, the most sacred text of the Judeo-Christian tradition, and one of the churches of my diocese without permission as a backdrop for a message antithetical to the teachings of Jesus," which is a pretty sick burn for a bishop. But if anyone has taught us that you can't trust a politician who uses a Bible as a prop, it's the guy who railed against Ted Cruz back in 2016.
He is some liar. He's a professional liar. You know, I say it. I'm doing great with evangelicals, but Lion Ted comes in and he holds the Bible up. And he holds it high, right? He holds it high. And then he lies. He lies.
There really is a clip for every scenario with him. So after Trump paid his respects, the White House, which vehemently denied that photo in front of the church was a photo op, posted a highlights reel, a video celebrating the president's heroic walk across the street with an inspiring soundtrack and everything. Well, maybe God is watching over us after all. It's just hard to believe he exists. Today he tweeted that his administration has done more for the black community than any president since Abraham Lincoln. And the best is yet to come. There's more? How could it get any better than this?
With your tweet today, are you concerned that you might be stoking more racial violence or more racial discord?
MAGA says, make America great again. These are people that love our country. I have no idea if they're going to be here. I was just asking. But I have no idea if they're going to be here. But MAGA is make America great again. By the way, they love African American people. They love black people. MAGA loves the black people.
What the hell are you saying? You know, 4 years ago, this was Trump's pitch to the black people.
And I say, honestly, what do you have to lose? Not going to get any worse.
Well, it took a while. It took 4 years, but we finally found out. Over the past week, I've been reading some very thoughtful posts and words from very smart people, some of whom say white people shouldn't be talking right now. They should be listening. And I get that. I don't disagree with that, but I'm the only one here, and it's a talk show. So I wanted to share what I've been thinking about and trying to sort through. And I know that a lot of white people bristle when they hear the word privilege, as in white privilege, because there are millions of white people who didn't grow up with money or a good education or a solid family background, or maybe even a family at all. So when they hear the word privilege, they go, what privilege? I grew up with nothing. I work hard. I earn what I have. Nobody gave me anything. You hear the phrase white privilege, and it's easy to get defensive. First time I heard it, I did. To me, white privilege was what like Donald Trump had, a wealthy father and a silver spoon in his mouth. It wasn't what I grew up with. So I rejected it because I didn't understand what white privilege meant. But I think I do now, and I think I at least understand some of it. And here's what I think it is. People who are white, we don't have to deal with negative assumptions being made about us based on the color of our skin. It rarely happens, if ever. Whereas black people experience that every day. Like every day. And please don't tell me you don't ever make assumptions about people based on the color of their skin, because I don't believe it. We all do. I know I have. I'm embarrassed to say it, but I have. And so imagine, if you can, how frustrating it must be to have to prove yourself to be something other than what people assume you probably are every day, sometimes multiple times every day. Yesterday, I was watching the news. There was a newscast from Van Nuys, and some looters were trying to get into a shop, and some people who live in the community who were black flagged down the police to stop the looters. But when the police showed up, they immediately handcuffed the people who flagged them down. The reporter had to tell them, no, not these guys, those guys. Imagine how frustrating it must be to get handcuffed or frisked or pulled over just because you're black. I mean, even if the cop looks in the car and goes, okay, everything's fine, have a nice day. How do you swallow that and move on? I don't know about you, that would make me furious. And now imagine what it must be like to be brutalized and killed and scared that those things might happen. What happened to George Floyd was on video. I mean, how often does this happen without a camera recording the whole thing? It sounds to me like it happens all the time. We just don't see it unless it gets posted online. And then we're shocked And black people are like, why are you shocked? We've been telling you this has been happening over and over again. So if you're wondering why people are angry and why they can't just march nicely in the street holding up their signs in a single file line, maybe that's why. I read something last night that I think makes a lot of sense. It's this: white privilege doesn't mean your life hasn't been hard. It just means the color of your skin isn't one of the things that makes it harder. Wherever you stand, I don't see how you can argue with that. So thanks for listening. I hope that made sense, and we'll be right back with Shaquille O'Neal.